Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us here at KAKM for Monday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting tonight's show. Up first, there's a dense smoke advisory out here for the lower Koyukuk and mid-Yukon Valley areas there, which includes Galena, Huslia, Caltag, Ruby, Portman, those locations. That's for tonight into noontime, until noontime tomorrow, and that's for smoke reducing visibilities to a mile or less at times, and not much improvement expected overnight and into tomorrow morning, but it should, things are looking up in toward midday tomorrow. Hopefully by noontime that can get canceled. But on the fire danger map here, a distinct lack of anything extreme now, just high fire dangers up over the North Slope, got some high fire danger over the Noatak Valley and over the Seward Peninsula and in the more expansive area here over the north central interior from about the western upper Yukon westward across the Koyukuk Valley areas out to possibly as far east or west as Selawik here. But notice it's really not extending down into the Kuskokwim Valley anymore. So seeing some improvement here, but better improvement where there's been more rain down over the southern areas. Still have some high fire dangers over northern Cook Inlet, the Palmer down through Eagle River into Anchorage area. Still some pretty dry locations there. So high fire danger continues at least for another day or two. On to yesterday's satellite imagery, you can see a fair amount of moisture circulating north and northwestward in along the North Gulf Coast. That's what brought all the rain to the area yesterday. A lot of clouds with showers down over the Panhandle, but the farther north you go, the more into the clearing you got, and temperatures were warmer, less rainfall, nicer conditions up to the north there. Today, not much different, the same thing here, most of the sunshine up over the northern interior areas. Some low clouds up here along the north slope, really slow to burn off today. Then some showers developing here over the eastern Brooks Range, extending back to the west and southwest there into the northern Koyukuk Valley. And several bands of moisture, rain today along the North Gulf Coast. This next band is going to keep it wet over the southeast coast, especially over the northern areas. I've got rain heavy at times in the forecast for both tonight and tomorrow from the northern Panhandle. Otherwise, the main circulation back here over Kodiak Island, good for some showers today, but not all that heavy at the state airport. And then a lot of clouds back to the west here over the eastern Aleutians, cloudy skies extending up over the Alaska Peninsula as well, and a lot of clouds out here over the Bering Sea. This is the cloud shield with the next system that'll begin to spread some moisture and increase the winds a little bit tomorrow into the central Aleutian areas there. And moving on to the chart today, we had thunderstorms develop here over the eastern interior, also from the Nulato Hills back down across the Yukon Delta this afternoon. Saw some thunderstorms developed also over the Susitna Valley areas and down over the western Alaska Range with some scattered showers up here over the Brooks Range area, again back into the northern Koyukuk Valleys, and then rain going on here along the North Gulf Coast. Rain also over the northern Panhandle today. Amounts range from about 2/3 of an inch at Cordova and Yakutat to Juneau, picking up about 1.5 inches of rain. And this band here set to move in. That's going to keep the rain falling heavy at times tonight and into tomorrow there over the southeast coast. Again, rain heavy at times for the Haines area, Juneau, with lighter amounts, but still pretty wet conditions down to the south with showers in across the southern areas. where it wasn't too bad today down around Annette Island, Dixon entrance area there, but still have a chance of showers, and another trough here off the coast will be moving eastward and pulling back to the north. That'll keep the North Gulf Coast on the wet side. Otherwise, for tonight, look for lingering thunderstorms here from the eastern interior, upper Tanana Valley, down across the Susitna, Alaska Range area back to the west and southwest, with showers here over the Yukon and Kuskokwim Delta areas. And then this week low near Kodiak, keep a chance of showers in the forecast there for Kodiak Island, as well as along the Alaska Peninsula, possibly as far west as Unalaska out there. Otherwise, look for low clouds and fog. That cloud bank will reform and advance back probably up to the Brooks Range here on the north slope, but should stay mostly fair to the south. And then low clouds and fog along especially the eastern Arctic coastline with some IFR there. Lots of IFR through the Bering Strait down to St. Lawrence Island, and much of the Bering Sea here in the IFR forecast category for the Pribilof Islands down into the western and central Aleutian areas. Not much wind gradient at all, just light winds there, kind of allowing the clouds and fog to expand over that entire area. This is the next system that will be spreading some moisture and possibly a little bit of an increase in the wind up to the central Aleutians during the day tomorrow. Nothing, all the winds should stay under small craft advisory levels, but definitely increasing chance of rain late in the afternoon here for Adak and Atka. Dry though for the eastern Aleutians, and scattered showers continue there for the Alaska Peninsula on up into Bristol Bay. Scattered showers also in the forecast for Kodiak Island. And then looks like just flat out rain, again heavy at times here, especially over the northern southeast coast, with rain and showers extending southward there to Dixon Entrance and the Queen Charlotte Islands, and another trough still to move through. So once this batch of rain moves through, those showers will move through tomorrow night, and that showers will linger into Wednesday, but it shouldn't be quite as wet as the next 24 hours here over the Panhandle. And over the interior, we've got a 999 millibar low up over the Yukon Valley. That'll kick off some showers along the Brooks Range and possible thunderstorms there from the upper Yukon Valley through the central interior back out toward the eastern Seward Peninsula, and then may get a repeat performance of some thunderstorms developing over the Yukon Delta, possibly as far south as Bethel, with showers and thunderstorms, which should be basically dry over the Kuskokwim Valley, just a risk of an isolated shower or two. And taking a look at the forecast for Wednesday, we'll see this system spreads rain up to the eastern Aleutians Tuesday night, and then that'll continue northeastward with rain spreading up the Alaska Peninsula throughout the day on Wednesday. Chance of rain, southern Kodiak Island late in the afternoon on Wednesday, and then pretty good winds picking up. Small craft advisories for the Alaska Peninsula, extending back toward the eastern central Aleutian areas, where they're more northwest out in that area. Otherwise, same story here over the interior, just scattered showers and thunderstorms, and over the interior areas from Koyukuk Valley extending back down toward the Unalakleet area, with thunderstorms also possible over the western Brooks Range, and from the eastern Brooks Range area southward to about Eagle. Look for some scattered showers over the Wrangell Mountain areas and along the Alaska Range. Probably see some showers develop over the Talkeetnas as well in the Susitna Valley, but should be dry, high pressure building in, so it looks like the North Gulf Coast will dry out, and the showers diminishing here over the southeast coast, but won't take them out of the forecast completely yet as this system approaches. They may shut off Wednesday night there, but definitely looks dry here up along the North Gulf Coast for Wednesday, with just some variable clouds. So partly to mostly sunny skies possible for the Kenai Peninsula and possibly even south central Alaska. Looking at temperatures this afternoon down that way along the Panhandle, upper 50s to lower 60s, 56 with rain there at Juneau, one of the cooler locations, but Annette with some sunshine today up to 66. Upper 50s along the North Gulf Coast, south central Alaska, upper 50s to lower 60s, 63 in Palmer today, 68 at Talkeetna, 65 over Gulkana there in the Copper River Basin. Up in the Tanana Valley, Fairbanks in the mid-valley there pushed up to 75. And a 64 over at Northway. And in the central interior, temperatures at Tanana, 73 today with about 70 degrees over at Huslia, 67 at Bettles, and the 61 up at Anaktuvik there, Arctic Village at 66, Fort Yukon and Eagle both at 70 today. Along the Arctic coast, pretty uniform temperatures up there, generally in the 40s with 41 at Barrow to 49 over Point Lay, 63 in Kotzebue this afternoon with a nice 69 degrees at Nome there on the south coast of the Seward Peninsula. In the Kuskokwim Valley, in the northern area there, 68 at McGrath, about the same. Sleepmute with 66, a little cooler at Bethel with 64, and mid to upper 50s here along the southwest coast with Macoriac at 54, 61 both at Dillingham and King Salmon this afternoon. Kodiak had 54. And mid-50s here for the Alaska Peninsula, although Cold Bay just 50 degrees, cool 51 at Unalaska, and an even cooler 46 at Atka. Lows for tonight in the 40s out there, so not much cooler than what you're seeing right now in that area, with 40s to lower 50s here over southern Alaska, staying in the 50s, some cases even upper 50s here over the west central interior areas. A little cooler as you head east, but not too much. Definitely cooler north slope in the Arctic coast, temperatures dropping into the mid-30s up there with 50s here over the Panhandle. And for the highs tomorrow, into the 50s to lower 60s for the southeast coast, much like you saw today, with 60s here over the southeast interior with 70s. Warmest areas, upper 70s there over the Kobuk Valley. The Ambler may reach 77 tomorrow, 72 over Fort Yukon. And not too bad here over the Yukon Delta as well, 65 to 70 for the highs. Cooler 50s for the Alaska Peninsula, lower 50s for the Aleutians. And for flying weather, look for some areas of IFR here over the northern Panhandle tomorrow, again with all that moisture and rainfall moving in, but marginal VFR all the way down to Dixon Entrance in the forecast for tomorrow afternoon. Marginal VFR here, southern Cook Inlet across Kodiak Island, and then IFR here due to smoke over the central interior, west central interior areas there where the dense smoke advisory is out, with a pretty good area, marginal VFR again due to smoke. But again, afternoon thunderstorms developing right along this line here and back to the west, with up to the north, starting out marginal on the north slope, becoming VFR in the afternoon, but areas of lower conditions hugging the coastline there. IFR right through the Bering Strait, and then just about all of the Bering Sea and Aleutians will be IFR. Passes, Anaktuvik, VFR, both south and north, same forecast for Radigan as well. For the western Alaska Range, starting out marginal, becoming VFR for Lake Clark and Merrill. That same forecast for Rainy as well. For windy, marginal VFR becoming better in the afternoon. Isabel and Mentasta should be VFR from start to finish during the day on Tuesday. And for Tanita, marginal VFR in the forecast as well, but that'll probably become VFR in the afternoon as well. And then for the Portage Valley, IFR to start with, and then becoming VFR into the afternoon hours there. So a big improvement there for Portage Pass. Chilkoot and White, marginal VFR throughout the day. And for freezing levels, cold pool here in the Gulf of Alaska at about 6,000 feet, but not much warmer. You get about 8,000 feet across southern Alaska, and then the gradient's pretty flat here over the northern interior. That's making for some pretty light and variable winds over interior Alaska aloft, otherwise 8 to 10,000 feet back out over the west central Aleutians. Taking a look at icing possibilities here, above 7,000 feet of the light to isolated moderate rime icing types here over the southeast coast, and then more of rime and mixed icing condition above 8,000 feet here over the central interior, and then back down where possible thunderstorms will be here over the Yukon Delta region. And then this area kind of creeping up and may slip on up to the central Aleutians with some increased chances of seeing some icing there above 6,000 feet. That would be tomorrow afternoon, and that whole area is going to slide northeastward across the eastern Aleutian areas and the Alaska Peninsula on Tuesday. And for the upper level wind flow chart, upper low now near Kodiak Island, flow into the southeast coast. That's where the heaviest rainfall is going to be tonight and tomorrow in that area, then kind of an easterly flow. So this moisture comes onshore and then kind of comes back in a weakened state across southern Alaska. That's pretty much like what we've seen for the last several days. Drier conditions to the north with more sunshine. 9,000 foot winds, again, pretty light and variable here through just about all of interior Alaska, and not too strong, but more of a southerly direction here along the southeast coast. And for the Aleutians, easterly winds picking up to 20 knots here as you come under the influence of that low center farther to the south, otherwise light and variable over the southeast Bering Sea. Northerlies at about 20 knots at 3,000 feet here from Point Hope and Cape Lisburne down into the Bering Strait, possibly to St. Lawrence Island. Otherwise, pretty light winds, 5 to 15 knots over the interior, variable to southwesterlies, and then that low near Kodiak Island, 15 to 20 knot winds circulating around that low center, and about the same here, south winds 10 knots for the panhandle. And taking a look at turbulence, we've got none significant here across the southeast coast, really just about all of mainland Alaska. Kind of a stretch here, maybe below 3,000 feet, light, isolated, moderate chop, especially for small aircraft from Cape Lisburne, Point Hope, there across Tin City and Teller, right down to St. Lawrence Island. And then turbulence possibilities also increase here for the central Aleutians, but that would be during the later afternoon hours below about 4,000 feet. And after the break of Hangar Flying, I'll be back to look at the marine forecasts.
Good evening, I'm Harry Keeling, and on behalf of Alaska Public Media and the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation, welcome to Hangar Flying. Our guest this evening is Toni Breeze. She's been on the program before. She's a well-respected A&P who's in charge of tech pubs for Pen Air, and she's their care coordinator. She started out her aviation career as an A&P apprentice in Homer, came to Anchorage and Pen Air in 2012. Toni, welcome back.
Thank you.
Last time you were on the show, we talked about how and when you first got interested in the aircraft maintenance career field. And I pointed out at that time, and I still believe that you're a great example of how women can succeed.
Thank you.
In all fields of aviation, including turning wrenches.
Thank you.
Another area you were really passionate about is your care team. Would you remind our audience who might not have seen that program what the care team is?
Yes, the care team, CARE stands for Compassionate Assistance Relief Effort, and in the event of an accident, then the care team is activated to take care of families and victims of the accident, survivors and deceased.
Okay, so you and I ran into each other a couple of weeks ago, and something happened in Merrill-Field.
It did.
Not really not a care team thing, but something from a person who was obviously prepared for what she saw.
Yes.
Tell our audience what happened.
I was working the weekend shift there and heard a loud bang, opened up the office door.
And this is at Ace Fields at
This is at Ace Fields at Merrill-Field, yes. Opened up the door and just saw a big cloud of dust. Didn't know what it was, grabbed my fire extinguisher and ran. Once I got there, there were a few other people that were there fueling up and loading their plane in front of Ace, and we were all there straight away.
And what did you come upon? What did you see?
It's 206.
Mm-hmm.
206, nose down, landing gear was across the taxiway, and there were 5 people inside. People were moving. We were kind of hollering at them, make sure they're okay. There was no fire. I got on the right side of the aircraft with someone else. We were trying to open the door and the flaps were down. Couldn't get the door open.
206 problem.
206, yep. That rear right-hand door is in the way of the flaps. So when the flap's down, can't get it open.
And there was no front right door?
Correct.
Unless modified,
Correct.
You won't get one?
Exactly. So we've got that rear, aft, and then forward on the left side. We were able to get the left side door open with no problems and get everybody out of the plane.
You know, it just happened that I was out there because I've got a hangar out there very close, and I was talking to you, and it impressed me because the airplane's still sitting there, and there's people standing around with their hands in their pockets. And talking to you, I thought, man, you really have your act together. You're calm, you're collected, you obviously did what needed to be done, and you did it quickly. So congratulations on that. So in a way, you were kind of the first responder.
Yes.
Luckily, there was no fire. Luckily, there was no injuries, but there certainly could have been.
Absolutely.
And so, you know, I got to thinking, and you and I talked a little bit about this, maybe people in the audience who are around airplanes, around airports, ought to think about what would they do in a similar situation.
Absolutely.
Some ideas for them?
I think that small operators, 135 operators, need to really review their emergency response plan. Think of what they're going to do in the event of an emergency. How are they going to react? Who's going to make what phone calls and be where and how long? And I think that that's really important, and it's times like these that we see we're not invincible. It's going to happen.
And I might add, without giving a particular solution, that people who see something like this and run towards it need to be aware that it can be complex.
Absolutely.
That they can injure themselves, that there can be a fire. There's certainly many cases of heroic actions where people have tried to get folks out, and I mean, you always got to admire folks like that. But also you got to realize that sometimes something can happen that you didn't predict or you weren't prepared for, because we aren't really first responders. Any thoughts on that?
Just to really be aware of your surroundings. We had a situation on that. That right-hand wheel was bent in and inward, and at any time, we could have jerked on it just a little bit too much. It could have fallen, could have hurt other people, could have hurt people inside, could have hurt us that were responding. So I think it's just really important to be aware of your surroundings, get everybody out as quickly as possible and away from the accident.
Good for you. And also, I'll bet you, I think you told me this, but you talked to the pilot and probably the passengers.
I did.
And what we always got to remember is bent metal is not a good thing.
Exactly.
It's going to cost you money, but what's really important is nobody got hurt.
At the end of the day, they all walked away.
Exactly. Thank you.
My pleasure.
It's great having you on the show. And,
Thank you.
And thanks for doing what you did as a citizen.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed tonight's program. It's fun to have Tony on, and it's I thought it was very interesting how people reacted to this incident. And if you're around airplanes long enough, around airports long enough, you're probably going to see something like this. So it was a little bit different program, but I thought it was quite enjoyable, and I hope you enjoyed it too. Remember that I hope you're a member of the Safety Foundation, so we can help do programs like this and our safety seminars and our scholarships, stuff like that. Please go to our website if you're not a member and join, or go to our website and renew for 2015. And until next time, fly safe.
Welcome back. Well, look for southwest winds at about 10 knots here along the south coast, and the central coast westerlies roughly at about the same speed, and then southerlies at about 15 up along the north coast. Seas pretty uniform here, 6 feet the entire coastline. And for the inside waters, light south to southeast winds at about 10 knots. Lynn Canal, Glacier Bay southerlies at 25 knots. Well, those are forecast to increase to 25 knots for Wednesday afternoon there for northern Lynn Canal. They'll seas building to about 5 feet. Kind of more variable and varied wind directions and speed down over the central and southern inside water areas. Northwest at 15 with 3-foot seas for Clarence Strait, and southeast at about 10 there for Stevens Passage. Otherwise, for the south coast, westerly winds at 15 with seas 7 feet. South to southwest winds 10 to 15 knots with the seas running at about 6 feet. And for Prince William Sound tomorrow, as well as the North Gulf Coast here and the Barren Islands and Shelikof Strait, all those areas, light variable winds, 10 knots, seas 2 to 4 feet or less, and then southwest breeze here, east side of Kodiak Island up to 15 knots, easterlies at 15 for Kamishak Bay, otherwise generally a south wind at about 10 for Cook Inlet. And then that becomes light and variable over northern Cook Inlet on Wednesday. No change here for Prince William Sound on the North Gulf Coast. Light variable winds with seas running 2 to 5 feet or less in those areas. Southeast now at 15 for the Barren Islands. Kamishak Bay, easterlies at 15 knots. Same thing for Shelikof Strait. And the strongest winds here will be along the east side of Kodiak Island. Southeast up to 20 knots with seas of 4 feet. And for Bristol Bay tomorrow, light southwest winds there. Light variable conditions here, with 2-foot seas or less there along the Bering Sea side of the Alaska Peninsula. Southwesterlies at about 15 with 6-foot seas all the way up to Sitkinak. And then the outlook for Wednesday, small craft advisories here except for Bristol Bay, where they'll be southeast at 15 with 4-foot seas. 25 knots here from Sitkinak all the way down to Cape Sarachev, and more easterly, but still up to 25 knots here on the Bering Sea side of the Alaska Peninsula, with those seas up to about 7 feet. And for the eastern Aleutians, east to southeast, 15 tomorrow, kind of becoming more easterly and northeasterly over the central Aleutians as you come under the influence of that low pressure area down to the south there, and northerlies 15 to 20 knots out over the western zone. And then for Wednesday, small craft advisories here, mostly on the Bering Sea side of the Aleutian chain from Adak and Atka eastward to just north of Unalaska. Those for northeast winds up to 25 knots, seas running 7 to 8 feet. Lighter winds, but still about northeast here, 15 to 20 knots on the Pacific side, and northerlies 15 to 20 knots continue for the central and western Aleutian zones. And for the southwest coast, south of Nunivak Island, westerlies at 15, north of the island, northwest at 15, and north 20 knots for St. Lawrence Island. Otherwise, light variable winds here for the northern Bering Sea down across the Pribilof Islands with seas running 3 to 4 feet. And then look for northeasterlies at 20 knots for the Pribilofs on Wednesday. Light variable winds here on the north side of Nunivak Island to southeast at 15 there on the southern areas. Otherwise, northerlies at 15 knots for St. Lawrence and St. Matthew Island. And for the Arctic coast, on the eastern Arctic coast, pretty light northeast winds tomorrow, 5 to 10 knots. Pick it up to 15 knots for the central coast, and then northeast 20 knots here from Point Hope all the way up to probably about Point Ley, maybe a little farther toward Wainwright, but be about Point Ley on down for those northeast to 20. And then from Wales up to Point Hope, look for northerly winds there, about 20 knots with seas running 5 feet. And for the outlook for Wednesday, there we go. Look for those northwest winds, Wales to Cape Lisburn, north to northwest at about 15 knots. Northeast, a little brisk here, but under small craft advisory levels, both with the wind speeds and the sea heights at about 20 knots. Otherwise, light easterly winds at about 10 knots to the central and eastern coastline. For tonight again, looking for rain here again along the North Gulf Coast. More of a scattered shower condition here over the Kenai Peninsula and south central Alaska, but rain heavy at times in the forecast for the northern panhandle, and at least some showers down to the south. Lingering thunderstorms and showers in over the southern half of the state, but staying fair to the north. Dense smoke advisory there for the lower Koyukuk and mid-Yukon Valley zone, back in about right under that low center there. For visibilities down to a mile or less in fog. Could have visibilities down to a mile or less in fog up along the Arctic coast. Smoke here over the interior. Areas of fog pretty widespread out over the Bering Sea and Aleutians. For tomorrow, again, possibly some thunderstorms here from the upper Yukon Valley back through the central interior and on down into the Yukon Delta. Otherwise, rain heavy at times here across the northern panhandle with showers down into Dixon Entrance.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.